Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to our second edition of Breaking News for this Tuesday, the 27th day of May, 2025. And in the headlines, there was a phone call a few days ago from Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu that supposedly was marked by heated disagreements. This is from the Times of Israel, and some other sites reporting the same thing. We'll talk about what has supposedly went on. And again, we don't know if this story is true or it's fake news, but it is getting promoted on quite a number of sites. All right. Also, U.S. envoy signals possible hostage deal as Israeli families approach 600 days of captivity for the loved ones. This is from All Israel News. Then we have this story. No longer comprehensible. The German Chancellor slams Israel's Gaza strikes. That's from Israel HaYom. Of course, we asked the question, what would you do, Germany, if you were caught in the same situation? And what's interesting, also, our fourth headline, Israel warns Europe that Palestine recognition may be met with West Bank annexation. Very interesting. All right, let's get to the headlines. Headline number one, Netanyahu-Trump phone call on Iran was marked by heated disagreements from the Times of Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. President Donald Trump engaged in a heated phone call last week over how to confront Iran, Israeli television reported Monday, contradicting earlier claims that the two had reached a unified stance on preventing Tehran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. According to Channel 12 News, the conversation was marked by sharp disagreements, with Trump reportedly telling Netanyahu, "I want a diplomatic solution with the Iranians. I believe in my ability to make a good deal." He also reportedly emphasized his interest in an agreement that would serve the interest of both sides. The tone of the reported conversation appeared to conflict with earlier claims suggesting the two leaders had concluded their call with mutual understanding. In response, the Prime Minister's office denied to the network that Netanyahu had a tense conversation with Trump. Following the Thursday phone call, Netanyahu's office had issued a readout that said he and Trump had agreed on the need to ensure that Iran does not obtain nuclear weapons. Trump, meanwhile, has been touting real progress in the ongoing nuclear negotiations between the United States and Iran, predicting on Sunday there could be good news ahead. Tehran's foreign minister, however, declared Monday that no date has yet been set for the next round of talks and vowed that the Islamic Republic will not consider temporarily suspending uranium enrichment, as the U.S. is demanding. The Channel 12 report on the tensions between Netanyahu and Trump came shortly after visiting U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said in an interview with Fox News that President Trump specifically sent me here to speak with the Prime Minister about how negotiations are going and how important it is that we stay united and let the process play out. Noem is a Trump loyalist who was formerly the governor of South Dakota, described her meeting with Netanyahu in Jerusalem as very candid. Asked to elaborate, she declined to share what the president's personal message was to the prime minister. But the prime minister's team had a conversation afterwards with us, and they don't remember a bilateral meeting that was quite as candid and direct. She added that she told Netanyahu how we really felt about the importance of Israel, our support for Israel, but this negotiation is critically important too. We are on a short time frame here. Now, here's what's interesting. We're on a short time frame here. We're not talking about weeks or months or years before President Trump will make a decision of what's going to happen with Iran. The Iranians have been given a very short time frame, a matter of days. And I asked the Prime Minister to work with President Trump to make sure we're making wise decisions together, Noam said. The president will never accept a nuclear capable Iran. He will never accept them having nuclear weapons and building the capacity to do that. She said in response, the intelligence information that Israel has and shares with the U.S., which we also have and are using for these conversations, is critically important. I think the message to the American people is that we have a president who wants peace, but will not tolerate a nuclear Iran that has a nuclear capability in the future. Okay. But she concluded by saying, but he wants this Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, to be on the same page with him. Now, the story is repeated in various forms on a number of sites. And again, we can't be sure of its truthfulness. We wonder how much Netanyahu is actually getting pressured by Trump. We don't know. Again, this is what is reported by Channel 12 in Israel. Other networks have reported something somewhat similar. Again, only time will tell. But the takeaway from here, which is interesting, it sounds like it won't be weeks or months, but hopefully only days. She said, don't know how many days is days, that they'll get some type of resolution. All right. Second headline, U.S. envoy signals possible hostage deal as Israeli families approach 600 days of captivity for loved ones. This is from All Israel News. Families of Israeli hostages who met on Monday with U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and Adam Boehler were informed that meaningful progress in negotiations for the release of their loved ones may be forthcoming in the near future. This has brought much hope to the families who have now been waiting for the return of their loved ones for the last 599 days since the Hamas-led attack on southern Israel. Communities on October 7, 2023. Of the remaining 58 hostages still in Gaza, around 50 are thought to still be alive. The team negotiating on behalf of the Trump administration has been applying pressure on both Israel and Hamas terrorist organization to resolve the hostage crisis and the humanitarian situation in Gaza with the goal of reaching a permanent ceasefire. Although U.S. officials have denied supporting a recent Hamas proposal, this is interesting what we talked about the other day, a recent Hamas proposal delivered by U.S. Palestinian businessman Bishara Baba. Israeli leaders suspect that it was introduced as a strategic maneuver by Washington to pressure Israel to softening its stance on ending the war. Israel is likely to resist a deal involving a release of only 5 living hostages, significant fewer than the original Witkoff plan, which called for the release of 10 hostages on the first day of a ceasefire, along with return of half of the bodies of the deceased captives. Ynet News reported that the United States has urged Israel to accept a variation of the deal that includes American assurances to Hamas for an end of the war, a move that could make the terror group more inclined to agree with Witkoff's original terms. So, do we have a deal? Well, we must wait and see. Again, this is one of these things. It's almost hour by hour, moment by moment, whether we do or whether we don't. We get stories back and forth. But like we said, we're bringing the latest, and we'll kind of wait and see. All right. Headline number 3. This one's fascinating. It's from the German Chancellor. No longer comprehensible. German Chancellor slams Israel's Gaza strikes. This is from Israel HaYom. Europe's key Israel ally hints at additional measures amidst growing pressure for arms embargo. German-Israeli relations face significant strain as Chancellor Friedrich Merz delivered unprecedented criticism of Israel's Gaza operations on Tuesday, that's today, characterizing them as fundamentally illogical while refusing to rule out halting weapons deliveries to Jerusalem. The escalating political backlash against Israel has now reached Germany, traditionally Israel's strongest European ally, with Merz positioning his government against the war's continuation. Speaking at a Finland press conference on Tuesday, the Chancellor launched his most scathing assessment yet of Israeli military strategy. The massive military strikes by the Israelis in the Gaza Strip no longer reveal any logic to me. How they serve the goal of confronting terror in this respect, I view this very, very critically, he said. The time has come when I must state publicly that what is currently happening is no longer comprehensible. While Merz declined to specify potential German responses to his criticism, he notably avoided denying weapons embargo possibilities when directly questioned. Our assistant level remains subject to internal government deliberations, he said, adding that our decisions won't necessarily be announced publicly. Simultaneously, Foreign Minister Johann Vadeful affirmed Tuesday during local radio interviews that German-Israeli solidarity remains foundational. Here comes the however. However, he emphasized that our determined anti-Semitism combat and complete support for Israel's existence, rights, and security cannot be exploited to justify the current Gaza Strip conflict and warfare. Both Merz and Vadeful represent Germany's historically pro-Israel political establishment, making their public criticism particularly significant regarding the German public sentiment towards the Gaza conflict. Echoing Merz's position, Vadeful suggested additional German measures. We arrived at a juncture requiring careful consideration of further steps, he noted without elaboration. Israel has initiated urgent diplomatic damage control as continental political support appears to collapse. German Ambassador Ron Prosar acknowledged in interviews that Friedrich Merz's criticism demands our careful attention because he remains our friend. Prosar argued that Israel cannot construct anything while Islamic terror organizations persist. They seek neither territory nor authority, only our destruction. Isn't that the truth? He described the destructive cycle whereby Israel simultaneously attempts hostage rescues, humanitarian assistance delivery, and terrorist combat as exceptionally challenging. The ambassador condemned Hamas while suggesting ceasefire possibilities exist upon hostages' releases, noting that terror organizations' transformation of educational facilities into armament storage, religious sites into operational bases, and medical centers into command headquarters. Israeli critics must understand our operational circumstances. And this is so true. Again, whether they be kindergartens, whether it be hospitals, whether it be mosques, whether it be churches, whether it be whatever it might be, Hamas uses them as a basis to attack Israel. They use them for attacks there, and they fire missiles, weapons from there. And plus, they have people that are still there that work there. In other words, human shields. This is what they do because they're hoping if Israel responds, they'll respond by killing some innocent human beings so they can plaster it all over the international news how horrible Israel is in killing poor innocent people. And of course, we wonder what would Germany do if they found themselves in a similar situation? Would they expect, would they think they expect themselves to just kind of quit and give up and let who's ever tried to wipe them out continue on? We don't think so. Now, what's fascinating is this last story. Israel basically warns Europe that the Palestinian recognition, we've been talking about this, they're threatening to do this, may be met with West Bank annexation. Reports say ministers tell UK, France, and others that Israel is considering annexing Area C of the West Bank and legalizing outposts. Sweden summons an Israeli envoy over Gaza aid. Israeli government ministers have reportedly warned key European countries that any unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state could prompt Israel to take unilateral measures itself as well, potentially including the annexation of parts of the West Bank, that's Judea-Samaria, according to Monday reports. Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer personally warned French Foreign Minister Noel Barrot and British Foreign Secretary David Lammy that Israel could respond to recognition of a Palestinian state by annexing this area of the West Bank and legalizing unauthorized outposts. The Haaretz, it's one of the Israeli periodicals, outlet reported, citing a foreign diplomat familiar with the matter. A second report by Israel HaYom said Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar conveyed a similar message to counterparts in UK, France, and other nations, warning that steps against Israel would be met by Israeli actions such as extending sovereignty to West Bank settlements and parts of the Jordan Valley. Israel certainly has its options, so we will wait and see. Now, we reported on this story in the past that a number of these nations have threatened to unilaterally accept the idea of a Palestinian state, just out of nowhere doing it. And so Israel is responding back, say, well, you do this, and we're not only going to reject that, but we're going to annex certain areas of the West Bank and, now make it officially Israeli territory where it's under our total control. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. There's never a dull moment here, is there? Things continue on. Okay, so what do we got? We got the hostage situation. Is there progress being made? The war in Gaza, what's going to happen there? Is United States going to try and put pressure on Israel to stop the fighting? And then, of course, the big one, Iran. What's going to take place there? The key of Kristi Noem's statement to Fox News is basically this, that we're dealing with days, not weeks or months before a decision is made. Finally, that's good. We'll, of course, bring it to you when it arrives. Okay, I'm Don Stewart. Thanks for watching. Until next time, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.